I guess I was fairly apprehensive the whole time that I was flying in combat. And I guess there's good reason to feel that way. I'm there to cause a lot of damage and a lot of harm, and therefore they would like to damage me. And I was 25 years old at that time. Top Gun was really a thrill. I must have done well in actual combat because at the time I was just a lieutenant junior grade, which is a first lieutenant in the Air Force. And so I may have been the very first lieutenant junior grade to go through Top Gun. That was the dream of a lifetime come true. I had wanted to be an aeronautical engineer and a test pilot just like my dad from the time I was 10 years old. STS-27 was my third launch, and it was only the second launch after the Challenger accident. Well, I will never forget, we maneuvered the arm, and Mike Mullane was my arm operator, so he moved the arm over there, and we brought up the television image of the right wing, and I looked at what I was seeing, and I said to myself, we are gonna die. To be an airline pilot, there was mandatory age 60 retirement. I was a NASA astronaut until I was 50 years old. And so I looked at the situation, and I had known a number of Southwest airline pilots. And they were just like me. They were flying because they loved to fly. Well, there's a lot of piloting that goes into it, a tremendous amount of piloting that goes into it, because you're going to wind up passing other airplanes. You're going to get in a duel with another airplane that's fairly closely matched. So there's a ton of satisfaction from doing that. And hey, let's just talk about the racing itself. It's fun to fly low, but it's dangerous.
On March 8, 1965, under orders from President Lyndon Johnson, nearly 3,500 ground troops stormed the beaches near Da Nang, South Vietnam. By year's end, nearly 200,000 American soldiers are sent across the Pacific in order to stop the dominoes from falling.
We insist, and we will always insist, that the people of South Vietnam shall have the right of choice, the right to shape their own destiny in free elections in the South or throughout all Vietnam under international supervision. And they shall not have any government imposed upon them by force and terror.
With this escalation, supported by both General William Westmoreland and the White House, air power becomes a necessity in the fight against an invisible force. Operating in the remote jungles of Southeast Asia, the Viet Cong wages a guerrilla war against the United States, hoping to drive them south and eventually off Vietnamese soil for good. To combat this threat, a plane, originally built to drop the atomic bomb on the Soviet Union, is called up to fight a conventional war against an unconventional enemy. The B-52 Stratofortress, an aircraft epitomizing America's military strength, begins a campaign lasting nearly 8 years, attacking the enemy from the sky. It is a controversial plan, pitting the politicians against the generals, with each side believing they know how to win this war.
General Westmoreland and Admiral Sharp and the Joint Chiefs have over a period of weeks past recommended strikes in North Vietnam using B-52s. State has been opposed to this, I think for very good reasons, fearing that it would interfere with the relationships between the government of Vietnam and the ICC, and State has consistently strongly recommended against approval of these strikes.
The United States was run by a bunch of arrogant, aristocratic, Ivy League fools who thought that their psychology was superior to the North Vietnamese psychology, and that they could teach to the Vietnamese how to run a war.
From the mountains of Khe Sanh to the destruction of Hanoi, the B-52 emerges as America's frontline plane, dropping over 3 million tons of bombs against communist North Vietnam. Today, almost 60 years after its first flight, B-52s continue to serve the needs of the United States Air Force. Known to pilots as the Buff, its reputation as one of America's greatest bombers is well deserved, being used in Operation Desert Storm and during Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. It is hard to imagine that an aircraft designed to meet the needs of the Cold War has maintained its longevity well into the 21st century.
At Castle Air Force Base, California, the B-52, America's biggest and newest jet bomber, goes into squadron service with the Strategic Air Command. A wingspan of 185 feet, length of over 150 feet and intercontinental range, over 6,000 miles without refueling, combat ceiling of 50,000 feet and a speed estimated at over 600 miles an hour. That's the B-52, shown in these Defense Department films going into active service in quantity, threatening devastating counterattack to any aggressor, the mightiest bomber in history.
In 1955, the B-52 begins a career that will last for almost 8 decades. After shocking the Western world with their MiG-15 swept-wing fighter, the United States learns an important lesson: never underestimate the strength and ingenuity of the Soviet Union. In the aftermath of Korea, America is convinced that a new, jet-powered, long-range, intercontinental bomber is vital in dealing with the threat posed by Moscow. With the existing B-36 Peacemakers already obsolete and the B-47 Stratojet experiencing numerous technical problems, this gap in the Strategic Air Command's nuclear deterrent force is what gives life to the B-52.
The B-52 was designed for one purpose only, and that was to carry nuclear weapons in an attack on the Soviet Union in a world war. It was not considered when the aircraft was being designed that it would ever carry conventional bombs. It was not considered when the aircraft was being designed that it would ever fight in Vietnam or in Operation Desert Storm or in the wars that we're fighting today.
At first, the Stratofortress is designed as a propeller-driven aircraft. But as jets proved to be significantly faster, the engineers at Boeing switched to this new form of propulsion. By the end of testing and development, the plane is built with a wingspan of 185 feet, a 45,000-foot ceiling, and a range of over 7,000 miles. Entering service, the aircraft is equipped with 8 jet engines and a top speed of over 500 miles per hour, symbolizing American war strategy by bringing the fight directly to the enemy's homeland. Like the B-17 over Germany and the B-29 over Japan, Boeing's new heavy bomber will hopefully rule over the Soviets. But from the second this plane is introduced, modifications and changes are requested by Strategic Air Command to meet this growing threat. In order to combat Soviet missile defense, the plane must fly in all-weather scenarios, be able to go as low as 500 feet, and carry on board nuclear missiles. During this period, the Stratofortress is involved in some of the most famous and infamous episodes in Cold War history. 1956. A B-52B drops the first ever hydrogen bomb on Bikini Atoll during a series of nuclear tests. Next is its role in propelling the rocket-powered X-15 into the fringes of outer space, achieving a world record of Mach 6.
The X-15 is cut loose 7 miles over the Mojave Desert to fall free and glide back to Earth, testing the stability of the most radically different aerodynamic structure ever engineered. A craft designed to reach speeds of up to 4,000 miles an hour.
Then comes the Cuban Missile Crisis, where America and the entire world are on the edge of their seats, fearful that nuclear Armageddon is just around the corner.
Is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere.
During this standoff, 70 B-52s are ordered airborne at all times, waiting for the call to strike. For a plane that proves essential, it is hard to imagine that it almost never saw the light of day. After the debut of the costly B-47, many in Washington wanted to slash the military's budget with the B-52 in the crosshairs. Fortunately, Curtis LeMay fights successfully to keep this bomber alive, knowing these planes will prove invaluable in the next conflict America faces.
Today, the Chinese Reds have succeeded in splitting Vietnam in two and have established a communist puppet government in the north. China's massive and still growing strength is felt throughout Asia.
From the jungles of Southeast Asia, an American meat grinder known as Vietnam would emerge. Following the defeat at Dien Bien Phu, what was known as French Indochina is divided at the 17th parallel into 2 separate nations. Almost immediately after this decision, the Communist North, aligned with Moscow and Peking, stops at nothing to control its neighbor to the south, a strategic American ally. And unlike Korea, where 2 opposing armies battled it out in uniform, this war is fought against an invisible enemy. Guerrilla forces aligned with Hanoi, known as the Viet Cong, conduct a campaign of ambush and sabotage, hoping to destroy Saigon from within. This threat causes the United States to send tens of thousands of advisors to prop up the unpopular government of Ngo Dinh Diem and to train a weak South Vietnamese army for fear of what is called the domino theory.
The domino theory was a current political theory at the time, first promulgated, I believe, by Eisenhower. It was the idea that if one of the countries that were allied, or at least not actively part of the communist sector in Southeast Asia, became communist, that inevitably others would fall. So if North Vietnam made South Vietnam communist, they expected then Cambodia to go, Laos to go, Thailand to go. They expected perhaps, if you played it out to the end, why it would have had some effect in India.
So help you God.
So help me God.
1965. After Lyndon Johnson defeats Senator Barry Goldwater in a landslide, the conflict in Vietnam, escalating during both the Eisenhower and Kennedy administrations, takes center stage.
Renewed hostile actions against United States ships on the high seas in the Gulf of Tonkin.
In a decision that comes back to haunt him, LBJ, almost 1 year after the controversial Gulf of Tonkin incident, authorizes the use of ground troops to maintain stability in the South and to stop a menacing Viet Cong from uniting the two countries under a communist banner. Referring to North Vietnam as a raggedy-ass fourth-rate country, the President and his most trusted advisor, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara, are convinced the conflict can be won both quickly and successfully. What they are afraid of is letting the military have too much control, as the President is overheard saying that all these generals want to do is bomb, bomb, bomb.
All of my military people tell me, and my economic people, that we cannot do this to the extent of the commitment we have now. It's got to be materially increased. Our 75,000 men are going to be in great danger unless they have 75,000 more. My judgment is, I'm no military man at all, but I study it every day and every night, and I read the cables. I look back over what's happened in the last 2 years, or the last 4 really, and if they get 150, they'll have to have another 150, and then they'll have to have another 150.
Fearing the ghost of Korea and Douglas MacArthur will come back to haunt this administration, a new directive is issued to Saigon, stating that all bombing missions must be approved by the White House prior to takeoff. As Lyndon Johnson would boast, they can't even hit an outhouse without my approval. The plan proposed by LeMay, calling for 94 targets to be hit over a period of 16 days, is scrapped. Instead, the operation known as Rolling Thunder is put into effect.
The idea was that we would apply pressure to a certain degree, to a certain parallel of latitude, and apply our air power there very effectively. And this would convince the enemy that they obviously couldn't win, they could never match us in our air power, and so that they would surrender.
Targets are not selected by the military brass, but instead by Johnson, McNamara, McGeorge Bundy, and Dean Rusk, who have the final say over what gets bombed. American military leaders are infuriated when Hanoi and a 60-kilometer radius surrounding it is ordered off limits. An attack on North Vietnam's capital could result in an escalation, something President Johnson fears will jeopardize his domestic agenda at home. Likewise, the port of Haiphong, an important choke point for North Vietnamese shipping, is also immune from attack.
I have stayed away from their industrial targets and their civilian population, although they urge you to do it.
Yeah, but Hanoi and Haiphong are stripped clean and have been for months. And you bomb them, you get nothing. You just build up more hatred. You get these people tied more closely together because they are tied by blood, whether from the north or the south.
I think that's true, and I think you've done nearly everything that you can do except make it a complete white man's war.
Targets like Hanoi and Haiphong were deliberately placed off limits by our clever people in Washington who didn't want to offend the Chinese or the Russians, and vastly overestimated what their reaction would have been. And so where we could have just obliterated the harbor at Haiphong and sunk everything that came in, we chose instead to try and stop the guy carrying 100 pounds of rice on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The war was just done in an Alice in Wonderland style.
It is a controversial strategy intent on keeping vital targets hostage by attacking trivial ones, hoping communist leaders settle for peace before it becomes too late.
We seek no wider war.
The brainchild of McNamara, who plans on micromanaging the war the same way he ran the Ford Motor Company, Rolling Thunder proves to be a total disaster.
What happened was we'd apply a little air power, and then we'd have a bombing halt. They would pull themselves together, reinforce, resupply, and go right on fighting as if nothing had happened to them. And we'd extend our Rolling Thunder a little bit, and the same thing would happen.
Fighting a guerrilla war against an enemy who wears no uniform, the restraints placed on both the Navy and Air Force right from the start makes their mission even more difficult to accomplish. It is in this atmosphere that the B-52 is called up for service. Many are hoping that the Stratofortress can fill the void left by its sister plane, the F-105 Thunderchief, unofficially known as the Thud. Designated a fighter, it is instead a supersonic nuclear bomber built to travel into the Soviet Union on a one-way trip. Weighing as much as the B-17, the decision to incorporate short, stubby wings to increase speed and reduce drag makes the aircraft extremely difficult to fly.
The F-105 fighter was designed by Republic as a nuclear bomber. This was a time when Tactical Air Command was demanding that it have a nuclear capability so it wouldn't be completely overshadowed by SAC. And the F-105 was designed to have an internal bomb bay for a nuclear weapon, and was a very fast airplane, and had a very troubled career originally, its development career, a lot of crashes. Ultimately, it was made into a relatively safe airplane, but then it was flown on a mission entirely foreign to its design. Had to carry external weapons, which of course cut down on its speed.
Unreliable at best, by the time it is replaced, over 400 are lost over Vietnam, more than half the total number built. Arriving in the Pacific, many are skeptical about the B-52's effectiveness against Viet Cong forces, hiding in canopied jungles. Can this aircraft, originally built to drop thermonuclear bombs on Moscow, successfully knock out strategic supply routes and hidden bases? Swatting flies with a sledgehammer is what one Air Force leader calls it.
The B-52 was called in because it was available, just like everything else in the inventory. And the B-52 was applied against concentrations, or supposed concentrations, of the Viet Cong soldiers. And it was useful because it could carry such a great load. They were modified with the B-52's Ds with what they called the big belly modification, so they could carry up to 85 500-pound bombs. And you put 3 of those out every 3 hours over enemy territory, you can create a lot of damage.
The B-52 force remained under the command of the Strategic Air Command, SAC, throughout the entire Vietnam era. And although B-52s operated from Okinawa and Guam and Utapao, Thailand, to bomb targets in Vietnam, they were never under the control of the local commander in Vietnam. They were always part of SAC.
And on June 18, 1965, the first bombers take off from Andersen Air Base in Guam. Their mission is to destroy suspected Viet Cong bases north of Saigon. By the end of the year, many, including General Westmoreland, view the B-52 as indispensable. Marine divisions are delighted by the scope, scale, and accuracy of the plane, providing them with close support during search and destroy operations. It is said that the Viet Cong's worst nightmare is the Stratofortress, that by 1966 is dropping 8,000 tons of bombs per month.
We have got 30 B-52s that have just unloaded their bombs on square mile in South Vietnam, under which there's, we think, a very likelihood a concentration of Viet Cong has been giving us all this trouble. And
South Vietnam.
Yeah, South Vietnam. It's an area that's got 15, 20 buildings underneath a lot of this bee brush and this heavy stuff covering it. And they've got the caves and every other damn thing. So no plane we got could do it except our B-52, so we brought them in from Okinawa.
Had it switched roles with the F-105, which primarily attacks targets in the north, its devastation could have been even greater.
It was as if everything was being done totally backwards. You had the B-52, which had never been intended to carry conventional bombs at all, but had now proven that it could do so, and it was carrying bombs against a bunch of guys in black pajamas who were running around in the jungle, while F-105s and F-4s were bombing targets in North Vietnam. It seemed to everyone that it was backwards, and it may have seemed to some B-52 crew members that they were not being used properly.
Unfortunately, the restraints placed on the aircraft limit its full potential. Because some North Vietnamese airfields, a key strategic target, are inside the buffer zone with China, B-52s are forbidden to attack them. When General Westmoreland begs for planes to bomb the Viet Cong supply route, known as the Ho Chi Minh Trail, by entering Laos and Cambodia, President Johnson tells him no, fearing it will escalate the conflict even further. The same goes with new surface-to-air missiles, or SAM sites, built to shoot down American aircraft. Since they are constructed near city centers, they too are off limits.
It was so bad that you could watch a SAM battery being built, you could watch it being activated, you could watch it being tested, you could watch them turn it on, but you could not attack it until they locked onto you. I mean, this is so stupid that it just defies imagination. As happened too often, we lost an airplane. You lost two brave guys who were well trained in a $6 or $7 million airplane. I mean, it was just the stupidity of it just rankles, because the pilots knew better, the guys on the ground knew better, the military leaders knew better, and they were unable to offset this dreadful influence from the White House.
People who were planning the missions, in military talk, they were fragging the missions, meaning that they were planning them, were sending these bombers to the same place at the same time on the same heading every day, and these crews knew that the North Vietnamese were ready. One B-52 crew member told me about a North Vietnamese anti-aircraft gunner looking at his watch and saying, "Oh, I'll go back to drinking my tea because the Americans won't be here for another 7 minutes." And by the way, when the Americans do get here 7 minutes from now, they're going to be on a heading of 280 degrees at 32,000 feet.
With American deaths escalating and nearly 500,000 soldiers deployed, the quick war Johnson and McNamara envisioned instead turns into a bloody war of attrition. Westmoreland, a pillar of the Army establishment, intent on fighting large World War II scale battles, is watching his troops get slaughtered. Viet Cong forces avoid these out in the open, search and destroy tactics by ambushing their enemy on the ground. Although America never officially loses a battle, the high casualty rates they endure causes support for the war to decline drastically back home. As protests grow in strength, Vietnam appears to be a quagmire. As 1968 begins, B-52s prove vital in the battle at Khe Sanh, what Ho Chi Minh hopes is America's Dien Bien Phu. With U.S. troops outnumbered by a ratio of 5 to 1, the heavy bomber is sent to provide backup, flying nearly 2,700 sorties and dropping over 75,000 tons of munitions during Operation Niagara. In the end, America emerges victorious at Khe Sanh, with General Westmoreland noting that the thing that broke their back basically was the fire of the B-52s. The victory is overshadowed, however, by massive Viet Cong attacks against South Vietnamese cities during the Tet Offensive. Although the United States pushes these guerrillas back, killing nearly 45,000 and severely weakening their future capabilities, images of the American embassy in Saigon being shot at stuns the entire nation, who had been promised for months that there was light at the end of the tunnel.
We had a press in the country that identified the Tet Offensive as being a great Vietnamese success. In actual fact, we obliterated the Viet Cong in that series of battles and defeated the North Vietnamese army. They were wrecked. They were ready to surrender, and yet they knew they could beat us.
Bombing halts have no effect, giving the enemy time to rearm. The original targets proposed by LeMay are hit, and yet North Vietnam continues to fight. Rolling Thunder is unable to achieve any of its objectives. With protests growing, McNamara resigning, and Lyndon Johnson almost defeated in the New Hampshire primary by anti-war Senator Eugene McCarthy, the president speaks to the nation in a televised address.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
With Johnson out of the race, the former Vice President Richard Nixon goes on to win the presidential election of 1968. His victory would mean big changes in the air war against North Vietnam and big changes for the B-52.
We will not let down our friends and allies around the world.
As the new president begins his first days in office, a policy known as Vietnamization goes into effect, slowly drawing down U.S. forces by strengthening Saigon's armies. With Nixon as commander-in-chief, the same old tactics are put under intense scrutiny.
I don't want to see another report with 16 sorties or by B-52s. I want the enemy to know that we're really letting them have it. So get them in there now. We've got to have it for psychological reasons. We can't have this, what appears to be a pusillanimous effort.
While this takes place, the president authorizes airstrikes against the nation of Cambodia, a longtime Viet Cong haven, immune from attack during the Johnson administration. Under Operation Menu, almost 4,000 B-52 sorties drop over 100,000 tons of bombs on suspected sanctuaries, significantly reducing the threat against South Vietnam.
1972, the North Vietnamese knew that the war in Vietnam had become so unpopular in the United States that the U.S. would search for some way to withdraw and that it would have relatively few conditions.
With the bulk of American troops now being sent home, 125,000 North Vietnamese soldiers begin their long-awaited push south on March 30th, 1972, hoping to finally end this war once and for all.
We had gone from 560,000 troops down to about 26,000 troops. And the North Vietnamese responded by sending their regular army in a huge offensive into South Vietnam.
They are instead stopped by massive B-52 firepower, killing over 50,000 enemy troops and destroying over 400 tanks. Switching from a guerrilla campaign to a traditional war play right into the hands of the United States and, more importantly, American air power. They are assisted by South Vietnamese forces putting a halt to the Eastern Offensive, with General Adams being quoted as saying, "By God, the South Vietnamese can hack it." And as Nixon and his top foreign policy advisor, Henry Kissinger, engage in a policy of détente with the Red Chinese, North Vietnam begins to feel the pressure from their allies to negotiate. But when communists continue to violate their commitment to peace at the end of 1972, the president orders for the gloves to come off. Dating back to the Johnson era, bombing halts are interpreted by the Americans as an act of kindness, while interpreted by the North as a sign of weakness. By December, though, President Nixon, after being re-elected in one of the biggest landslides in American history, orders the execution of Operation Linebacker II. This plan, to be conducted at the height of monsoon season, calls for the massive bombardment of Hanoi, Haiphong, power plants, rail yards, airfields, and SAM sites in one giant air campaign. F-4s, F-105s, and most importantly, B-52s are instructed to take out these key installations now that North Vietnam is in a vulnerable state. And on December 18, 1972, the first wave of planes takes off, unleashing fury from the air.
729 sorties were made. First sortie, we lost airplanes. Second sortie, we lost airplanes, as I recall. Third sortie, we didn't. But the losses were high, and our tactics were not good. By the third one or fourth one, we improved the tactics. And by that time, we had the other elements assisting the B-52s. We had Navy aircraft and Air Force aircraft beating up their airfields, taking out their SAM defenses. And within days, the North Vietnamese had exhausted their supplies. They couldn't resupply their SAMs, and we had them at our mercy. So we bombed them, had a Christmas recess, which was totally stupid, allowed them to recoup a little bit, but went right back. And lo and behold, the North Vietnamese, who had refused to negotiate, asked if they wouldn't like to go back to Paris and renegotiate.
North Vietnam, in a state of shock and weakness, returns to the negotiating table, and in 1973 a ceasefire is reached, ending the war after more than 7 years. However, with no American presence in South Vietnam, by 1975 the Communists are successful in uniting the two countries, marking a great defeat for the United States. Looking back at the air campaign in Vietnam, the B-52, as General Westmoreland said, proved indispensable. Its role in providing air support for troops on the ground, most notably during Khe Sanh and later in obliterating strategic targets in the north, completely changed the war. Had the Stratofortress not been used, the outcome could have been very different, possibly leading to an earlier American defeat. However, a series of rules imposed on the plane by Washington, D.C. turned out to be the B-52's biggest detriment. Targets that should have been hit from day one were left out, allowing North Vietnam to continue their proxy war in the south through the Viet Cong. Had these restraints been lifted and a 100% effort been given in 1965, the B-52, along with the entire Vietnam War, could have ended in a stalemate instead of a total communist victory.
The guys were walking around at Nellis with this 100 mission patch, and I really wanted that 100 mission patch. It was one of those goals that I had is to get that 100 mission patch. And so when I got to Yokota, I went down to personnel and I volunteered for Southeast Asia. And I didn't have a clue at this time. I was the only one that had volunteered to go to Southeast Asia. So in May, I think it was April or May of '67, and like this was right following those DART missions that I had, they got an order to send 5 guys TDY from Yokota to Takhli Air Base to fly combat missions. I was just a lieutenant, and I was the first one called up because I was the only one with a volunteer statement. And so then, of course, there's a lot of guys who wanted to go. They just hadn't thought about putting in a volunteer statement. And so, anyway, they filled up real quick. So 5 of us went down, and we went to Takhli, and I wound up going to the 357th Squadron. It was the 355th Wing at Takhli, and the 357th Squadron. And got to fly with some really, really great guys. And then this is where the rubber meets the road, as the saying goes. And once again, this is where my 6 months of experience with the 105 really, really, really paid off. Because I knew the airplane extremely well. Because like I said, Spiels had pushed me. So I was able to assimilate into that role pretty quickly and effectively. Nobody had to worry about where I was. I was always going to be where I was supposed to. I was going to do what I was supposed to do. And because I knew the rules and I knew why the rules were there. And that's part of the training that I had gotten. And so started flying. The first 10 missions you fly, they get you easy missions, the lower route packs, or I even had some Laos missions, which we weren't in, but I had some Laos missions anyway. Then you start flying RTAFB 6. Now, RTAFB 6 was not a friendly place to be because they had more guns, missiles than anything, from what I've been told by the old heads, that we ever faced. And the flak sometimes would really be horrendous. But one mission, it was sort of interesting, actually, because when I first started flying the PAC 6 missions, the guns were quiet. So I couldn't believe it. You know, we'd roll on the target, I was expecting all this stuff to come up, nothing. And then July, I think it's 4th or 5th came along, and we're going against Kep Airfield, and I'm flying, I think in the second flight. Bob White was leading. He flew with our squadron actually, and he was leading the force in against Kep Airfield, which is on the Northeast Railroad, which is northeast of Hanoi. That's why they call it the Northeast Railroad. And anyway, we roll in, and all of a sudden I see something I hadn't seen before, and these red streaks were going by my cockpit. And it took a little bit for me to realize that's flak. It hadn't gone off yet. That's the flak going up. And then this horrendous explosion took place right underneath me. And I mean, it literally, I'm in a 45-degree dive, and I was doing 550 knots. It literally, it was like somebody took you and hit you in the back as hard as you could. And it's just, I mean, the whole airplane just completely just moved, and it rolled me upside down. Here I am going straight 45 degrees down at the ground, upside down now, and I thought I'd been hit. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind that I'd been hit, and I checked my gauges real quick, and this is where, knowing the airplane, everything felt solid. And so I kept the roll going, and I rolled it out. I checked the gauges real quick, and everything was still in the green. And so I continued, I dropped, came off the target, and I looked up and I saw a sight that I'll never forget. One of the guys on the first flight had been hit in the belly. We had a belly tank, and fuel was just pouring out, and he was a ball of fire all the way back. And give me a second. Anyway, I pulled up beside him, and he had a real high angle of attack, was climbing, and this fire was just pouring out of the back of his airplane. I pulled up alongside of him, and I didn't know for sure who it was, but I said, I'm out here to the left of you. I'm out to the left of you. You've been hit. Lower your nose. You got too high an angle of attack. You're going to lose it. Lower your nose. And the nose came down a little bit, and he said, it's getting sloppy. I heard him say it over the air. And I said, try to head a little bit, bring it over to the left more. And he said, I can't hardly see, it's too much smoke. I said, roll a little bit left, roll left. Trying to get him out to the sea. Try to get him out where he could have a chance maybe to get out of the airplane. And he sort of rolled, but then he said, I'm starting to lose it, I'm starting to lose it. And I said, well, don't get out of it before you lose it, because what would happen if you got an angle of attack in the 105? If you got a high angle of attack, the nose would just slam down like this, and then when you punch, you're off the seat, and that seat comes up and hits you, but it can really hurt you bad. So I was trying to keep, it was obvious he was going to bail out. So I said, get out of it before you lose it. Well, so anyway, he leaves the airplane. So I went back, I joined up with the tanker, get home, and the crew chief, of course, they'd come up on the airplane and say, how'd it go? And I said, well, check the belly. I might have taken a hit. And he checked it, and he said, yeah, there's a hole in the bottom of the airplane. And after that guy had gotten hit, 2 other guys got hit. So we lost 3 guys on that mission. And the guy that I tried to help was Ward Dodge, and he was basically my mentor when I showed up in the 357th Squadron. He's the one that taught me how to fly combat.
lieutenants coming in behind this F. And they just finished their 100th mission. Actually, they got cycled through to go back up to rescap one of our other pilots that was shot down earlier. So they've just got 101 missions. And we're real proud of them because, first of all, not many lieutenants fly the 105. And secondly, to get 100 missions in it is outstanding, we think. So we're going to meet them here at the end of the runway and take them on up to the parking space, give them a bottle of champagne, and I imagine they're three happy boys.
When all is said and done, you really cannot adequately relate a war. War is too potent, too personal. War is living and laughing and crying and dying. It has always been the man who fights who can best report a war, if he will. True, his story may be confused, sometimes harsh, sometimes boisterously non-committal, but it is real. This is one segment, one small insight into our present war. This is the 105 story. The story of fighter-bomber pilots flying daily over the armed camp of North Vietnam during the month of November 1966. These are the men of the 388th Tactical Fighter Wing, and in particular, the men of the 421st, the Fighting Cavalier Squadron.
Sandy says, well, what are they doing? He says, well, how do I tell if they're friendly? He says, well, if they come up with their hands over their heads, they'll be friendly. He says, no, one of these guys has got a gun. The guy says, well, how far are you from them? He says, well, standing right here by me. And he said, well, it must be friendly.
How's it feel to have 100?
I thought I was going to kill myself on initial, you know the truth. Jeez. FOD. They didn't know where he was for a while. And then they saw a lone D up there, and they said, all right, that's two, and he just lost the radio. I'm going to be an instructor pilot. Where? T-38, Williams Air Force Base, Arizona. I figure I'll arrive there, and I'll be real quiet, calm, and all that, and I'll go in, and all the students will nudge each other, and when they meet me, and I'll be their instructor, and they'll fly with me, and they'll nudge each other and say, what did Lieutenant Rasmus do before he came here? And it'll be all quiet, no one will know until finally there'll be graduation, and we'll show up in mess dress, and there I'll be with my air medals and my DFCs and my Silver Star and my Commendation Medal and my Vietnam Service Medal and all this stuff all the way across, and I'll walk in with a slight limp, and they'll say, tell me about it. And I'll say, it was nothing. It was nothing. But then for a week after, every time I crawl in the airplane, as I get in, I'll pull my leg in and I'll wince a little, and I'll say, what is it? And I'll say, oh, it's just an old war injury. 45, 44. Right, 45, 44, 14. How'd the mission go? Pretty good? Yeah, pretty good. Get another one. How many is that? Well, it's 42, 43 now. Okay. Major height. One mission, one counter, one for the month. Finally made the board. 99 hard ones to go. I'll get 43 this afternoon. I've got to put them on for my hand for number 90. I already got it. So you're going to get two today, huh? One more, I'll be able to make it big. More Christmas shopping done for you back. No, you really can't blame us. No, sir, you can't blame any of us. We have 4 people looks like should finish up by the end of this month. They should be home with their families for Christmas. Well, think you're going to make it home for Christmas? Yeah. Well,
67.
This wing, even though we're roughly 100 miles from any sort of civilization, morale is high here. I've noticed that. The men know what they're doing and why they're here.
Well, if we still have to be over here, I'll come right back, and don't make any difference to me.
You come right back and do another hitch.
You bet I will. Well, I feel we have a reason to be here. As you read Common Aggression in Asia, I feel that we didn't just take some measures to stop it here. We may be fighting in our backyards. Enjoy some of the things I've been over here for, such as the American way of life.
I served in World War II in the Southwest Pacific. Served during Korea.
Well, when I leave here, I still have some time to do the service.
Gonna make it a career?
Probably. We don't have a morale problem. Here we sit out here in the middle of a strange country and away from everything that's familiar to us. And I'm not speaking of pilots now, I'm talking to the maintenance people. But there is no morale problem. Of course, the pilots couldn't have a morale problem. There's always something going. There's always something going. There's never a dull moment. If there is a factor involved with a morale problem, it's fatigue. Yes, I personally try to discourage it. Man has put in 100 missions over North Vietnam to go home, get a rest, and then come back. However, I have one pilot here that just insisted on taking another 100, and he's here. His name is Lieutenant Victor.
Yeah, I want to come back down. How come you get to stay here?
Hey, worked harder. You could have stayed here with me.
Yeah, but Mommy wouldn't have had any part to do with that.
Yeah, okay. There's the deal. You know, you're married. Let's face it. You know, if you like somebody well enough to be married with them, God, you don't want to be away from them for a year, or 8 months, or anything like that. How are you going to explain to a wife that you put in for a concurrent tour? You know that you're going to take flying over her, and it wouldn't happen. You know, like me.
That got to do with you?
Nah, that's why I'm sticking around. You know, I'm a bachelor. I got nothing going for me back in the States, and the flying's good. You don't have all the little nitpicking rules and regulations that you have to put up with in the States.
Which we did 2 months ago.
Yeah. It's still a lot better than it is back there now. But I just, you know, I enjoy it. And it's the kind of deal like everybody says, yeah, I'm waving a flag, but I'm not. But at the same time, you know, where are you gonna stop it at? You know, where's communism? Are you gonna wait till they're in the Philippines or in Australia or San Francisco or Des Moines, Iowa? You know, you just stop it here or wait till somewhere later on. I don't think most of the people think about that. They like me, you know, what happens, you know, if I get shot down. Too mean, they'll never get me anyway.
Hey, at least you were pretty mean until you shaved your mustache.
Yeah. I couldn't stand that anymore.
Our bombing objectives, I believe, can be very distinctly divided into two phases. Our interdiction program conducted in the southern portion of North Vietnam in an attempt to deny movement of the enemy into South Vietnam, and our strategic, if you will, objectives in the northern portion of North Vietnam in terms of attacking principal lines of communications, the northeast and the northwest railroads, which comprise the two most major railroads in North Vietnam, also POL installations and other military supply and storage areas located in the delta regions of North Vietnam. I just spared this flight here that's getting ready, the big gaggle to take off. We've got over 50 airplanes involved in this strike force, and it was going to be a big raid up near the Hanoi area, but the weather's bad. Now they're going to various other areas. a spares job. For every 4 airplanes we launch one spare out to the end of the runway. In case one of the airplanes that we're having trouble with, they can fill in any 4 positions, any one of the 4 positions. He's usually a leader, so in case the leader aborts, he can fill in that spot. You can see this flight taking off now, and the airplane standing by is the spare. He'll be coming back up like me probably pretty soon. Spare is not a bad job because you do launch quite a bit of the time. We like to fly in flights of 4. That's why we have a spare out there, because if we didn't, we'd never get another airplane up in time.
About 250 or so. God, my fanny's tired.
Oh, my fanny's square.
I see a flag on it, sir. When I rolled in, I thought I saw something funny down there. I didn't see it. You didn't bother to tell you we didn't. You didn't? I didn't? No. I saw a nice big bridge there. 2%. I was carrying about 2% back. Yeah, when that guy kept calling Mix, and we hadn't caught up with that flight in front of us yet then, and I'm still going full blow rate about 620 degrees. Yeah. This is not the answer.
Don't worry, I was watching you at 6 o'clock.
Thanks a lot.
I call you if anybody came.
I was watching it too.
Well, that's when I was on my run, that's where I saw all the sparking coming from. All the bright flashes were coming from right around where you dropped your bombs. So we came right in through this area right in here. And then walked down to Route 6. Where's Route 6? That's the real point.
Well, where were we when those, where was that flight that was calling out all the MiGs?
That wasn't a flight that was calling me. That was some guy.
That's the 121 that sits out over the creek. There was somebody up there saying, drop, along that road to this, that, and the other. Some guy was saying, there's a single over there, and there goes this and that and the other.
Yeah, but they were all identified as fragments.
I saw one.
Yeah. There was a gaggle of airplanes up in there, I'll tell you. Cripes, they were all over.
It sounded to me like before we got there that some guys actually saw them. They were calling them out.
We have 4 squadrons in it. They are all located up here in the, I'll call the quadrangle. The 469th here on your right, Fighting Bulls. To the left here, the 421st, the 34th, and the 13th.
It's about 26. Aircraft 148 marks the beginning of the 421st Tactical Fighter Squadron area, which
I spend most of my time. We have 20 aircraft assigned to the outfit. As you can see, they're all painted up in different ways. The primary identification feature is the red GCA deflector on the nose gear strut. As a matter of the 105 and my particular acquaintance with the doggone thing, first associations, I guess, from a number of years back, I could care less about the airplane. I didn't think it was ever made to fly, and it certainly, from a maintenance standpoint, wasn't very reliable. Southeast Asia has changed my mind.
On the left here is age. That's ground support equipment. We have about 300 pieces of it here, and it's worth $6 million. The 105 is a very complicated weapon system. It's got radar, gun sights, electronics, all sorts of complicated electronic equipment in it. And this equipment here supports the operation of the 105. This is thinking back at the complication of this weapon system. You'd like to know that it takes 40 man-hours of maintenance people to support 1 hour of this airplane in the air. That's how complicated it is. Average effect, the best airplane in the Air Force over here today to do the job.
This flight line at night is a pretty active place. There's more work done at night, actually, than there is in the daytime, because the daytime is completely taken off with launching and recovering airplanes. We don't have much time for anything else. Of course, there's a turnaround. There's a lot of bomb loading for the second go around noon, but nothing like at night. You know, put it on one airplane, it doesn't come in commission, you have to take it off and put it on another one. It's pretty frustrating. They get it done somehow. I don't know how, but they do. We have a remarkable delivery rate here. I can't remember the last time I got a maintenance non-delivery. We're always getting up. They do a real bang-up job, matter of fact.
Sure does. What is that?
Is that a new grunt we have in squadron?
Right. They probably said sport shirts, not sporty shirts.
Over there, probably.
In your what?
Your what?
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll be darned. No wonder I didn't get no mail. Probably go around here second place. Who's stuck in? My sister. Oh. You never write to me unless I go to combat. I would do that.
Make Juliet, I no care. My love waits there. In San Francisco, beyond the blue and windy sea, when I come home to you, San Francisco, your golden sun will shine.
tanker that everybody remembers most. That's where the adrenaline starts to pump. The airplane's working all right. You got the tanker, and it accepted the gas. That means you're going. That's your last chance. The first flight goes through the tanker, and you stay with the tanker. There'll be 4 flights on the tanker. And everybody will go through the tanker and then fill up. It takes 6,000 to 8,000 pounds. And you stay there. And you stay in a safer area. After everybody gets full, you extend. And you head up to your drop-off point. And en route from the anchor to the drop-off point, you go through a top-off. And it takes 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 pounds. The point is that you can get 4 airplanes through a top-off just in nothing. It takes a couple of minutes per airplane. Whereas for the original big refueling, why it takes quite some time. So consequently, if you put 4 flights on the tanker and extend immediately, you get to the drop-off point where the tanker has to turn back before you get your strike flight full. Plus the other added advantage is that everybody leaves full, or close to full.
A lot of our mission is to observe what's going on the ground, what they're moving, where they're moving it to, how their bridges, what kind of condition they're in, this sort of thing. So we do need a lot of area that cloud cover isn't over the target area. And up north, where the SAM environment is heavy, you can't operate in say around cumulus buildups where you're going around the clouds because the SAM will come right straight through them and hit you. Incidentally, the airplanes we have lost to SAMs have been in these conditions, so we have to avoid them.
Well, maybe 150. I still had line speed, though. That's surprising. I got water right away. I had all kinds, so... Yeah, I had line speed plus... Do you hold the brakes? Do you remember what the weather was when we went into the tops of it? Let's see, we were at 14. About 10,000. Yeah, we went through a layer at 10,000, and then it was about from 10 to 9, and then from 9 to the ground in areas it was clear, but there was a scattered layer in there about 5 or 6.
We had 3 on that extra one. This is how many? This is 24?
Sorry, we lost 2 today.
Okay, this 1, 2,
24, 1 is 25. Okay. Now this is a CBU flight. This is, what's your second flight? Loaded with tomorrow. Nice spot, still tagging. And then drive up there slow so you hit the red. So you're going to hit the TLT now. We hit the red and Y. Everything, so we're going to hit right on down here at TLT. Everything worked out perfect except the weather. The weather tomorrow indicates a small high pressure area centered just about over Hanoi, which should make for fairly good weather except for restricted visibilities and haze. The crutch of this one is going to be the weather on Fed Ridge tomorrow, the last 5 minutes into the target. Just that weather just to the northwest and west is going to be the real critical area.
So we'll do it the same way.
Yeah, if everything works the same way tomorrow, we'll get it. If the weather breaks, then we'll wait till it does.
Sir, tomorrow's target is the Dien Bien Railroad. It's the largest railroad in all of North Vietnam. Its function is to control all the traffic coming in from the Northeast Railroad and the Northwest Railroad into Hanoi. It then controls all traffic going south. It's located 5 nautical miles north of Hanoi. Its defenses include a heavy concentration of AAA, and there are 26 known SAM sites in the area.
Roscoe was brought here by a pilot from Kadena, who was temporarily assigned to the wing. When the pilot was shot down up north, Roscoe sort of became everybody's dog. The only dog allowed on base. Now Roscoe's a free agent and goes everywhere. Sort of a tramp with a big heart. But lots of guys, for instance, don't feel right unless he's sitting there in a commander's chair during the mission briefing. They say if he sleeps, it's going to be an easy mission. If his ears perk up, watch out.
The winds there from the surface to 5,000 feet along the coast are going to run about 25 knots out of the northeast. Did have an aircraft report right over the mountain there, he says this morning, just about at McGeough Pass at 5,000 feet, he had a wind of 030 at 40 knots.
Nobody dares say anything against the 105. And then you hear stories and wild tales and so forth, and Well, I've learned to love this old bird. It really does the job. There's not another airplane that we've got that can do what this one will. They just use as much as they can be used, and very successfully, very successfully. The pilots love the airplane. They love the speed and the power, and it'll get there and get you out.
We hear an awful lot about surface-to-air missiles. They're called SAMs, or referred to as SA-2s. This is a picture of an SA-2 site situated in the immediate Hanoi area. A close-up of this particular target would look something like this. Very clearly, you can observe the presence of SA-2 missiles. And in this area, we find the radar van which controls the firing of the missiles and also tracks the aircraft along with providing guidance to the SA-2 missile. Our pilots are constantly faced in flying into North Vietnam with missile firings along with extremely heavy anti-aircraft.
I kind of call it the dry throat mission myself. Usually I come outbound from the target and I'm just kind of sucking that water bottle dry throat.
Well, the only thing I can really say about the Hanoi area is about the time you start coming off the tanker on the way up there, you begin getting butterflies in your stomach, naturally, and then you begin settling down to the task at hand of navigating and finding your way up there, and then once you arrive in the area, you're generally pretty busy, and although at times you're pretty scared when you have to roll in on something up there, especially when you look down and you see nothing but a black cloud or a white cloud down below you. It's about as scary a mission as I've ever been on. I think it tries you to just about the maximum on the missions.
If you can get between a ridge between you and that radar site, they can't guide a missile at you. It's just when you get down in the delta in the flatlands, that 30-mile ring around the city of Hanoi is a bear. Because it's flat, you have no protection, and I don't know how true it is, but they say it's the most heavily defended place in the history of aerial warfare. I've been there and I believe it.
Everybody wear your flak belts today, guys. Doesn't have one. Drop flag? Well, that wards it off. Everybody wear your flak magnets. How come no matter how much in a rush, I'm always the last guy? You don't want to go. Show us some kind of reluctance. There ain't no way. There ain't no way. You got those flags you're going to tie between the wings? Or one on each? Yes, sir. Quit watching the morning.
Now, first of all, we have in our vest is the radio, which is the most important item we have. Our second item, I would say, is flares. The third is your weapon. You have the compass and the mirror for signaling and find direction. The most important one, upon bailout, is the beeper.
I hear yours, too.
Yeah. Who did that?
How many bombs we got? Oh, yeah. We must have 20 more, or 30 bombs, haven't we? Who belongs to this one? 148. That's fine. 148. I'll kick my first out. Okay, I won't kick your first. We're going way up. Way up north.
I have 4,500 too.
Roger, I'm gonna hold 240 here till we get to red. I'm just crossing the river now, Steel.
Red river?
Right.
Eagle 4, check.
Eagle flag, a lot of flag out south that middle side. Speed's off right.
Automatic weapon training here, question.
Steel, I have no contact. This is leading about 35 miles from our turn point.
Roger, so am I.
Okay, Steel lead's going to start a left turn and come over here just a little bit. We're getting a little action right below me. Being a clear, we get close to the turn point.
Roger, I'm turning right now.
Steel. Going at 5.
And we got a bogey low at 2.
Who was that for, Eagle?
Clem.
Get over to the right, something. I got to take the one back this way and we run south. Right.
Okay, boys, there's a mate turning south there.
Roger, I'm going in take off right. I see him loud and clear.
You choice, we got mates right under us, right under us.
Roger, let's go get him.
Roger, I'm right over the target right now. I got a couple green right in front of him. Roger, I'm mixing it up with 3, 4 MiGs. Okay, I'll be back. Let's go back, Detroit.
Roger, the two stringers look like 105s out at 9 o'clock high, no sweat.
Okay, this is Banjo's got a contact down in the target area.
Pull up about 10 degrees and try to point.
Let me see, get me lined up.
Okay, keep pointing left.
Okay.
Now, level out now, he's down. Now, he's pumped, he's going to get going in a minute.
Okay, I got him there.
Now, you've got about 11, try to cross the line. Down. Run! Take it down! Take it down! Run!
This is Banjo, we just got a launch. Take it down, troops. Which way now, then? I got a cloud, yeah.
So get the launch, 11 o'clock.
We can take it down? Roger, Banjo, take it down. We got a launch. I see them coming off the pad at 12 o'clock. I think we're all right for the time being. That looks good.
Okay, Detroit, let's get out of here to the southwest.
Give me your direction and altitude.
Roger, I'm going 240, right on the deck.
Oh, tonight and so far they'll be singing. In the States it had always been fun. And we'll tell tall tales of the nation. And we'll dream to old number 1. Mr. Magoo. There are three of them. They're shooting at us, too. Well, they're sitting right up on that hill, right from the left side of the... Right on the... If you'd have passed through the top of that hill, you'd have nailed them.
You know, when you said let them go, I just pushed, and then I looked out and I said, oh, gee, that was too high. It was about 6,500 tapes. I had 55 or something set on the tapes. I don't think I was short in hell.
Well, I didn't mean go ahead and push. I meant, you know, you just take that hill on your left right there and hit that one.
All right. So, oh, there's another one out of the way. Got another one, that's it. Yes, indeed. 51. 51 now. Kind of look at that. Watch the river. You know, part of the problem is everybody sits around and they go up and they hit this little POL dump and that POL dump. And everybody wants to hit a good target. Oh, that's the only thing you're here for. That's right. But so a guy walks in and he says, well, I just got here, put me on that, you know. And the guy says, look, I've been up there 6 times and haven't hit it because there's nothing to hit. Now I got a chance to hit. How about letting me go? And who's going to win the argument, you know? Well, you got to give him a shot at it. Well, that's right. We've been very successful here in taking pilots from SAC, ADC, Training Command, as long as they go through one of the tactical schools, and one of the 105 schools in Attack Air Command, back in the States, and receive roughly 70 hours in the 105. They do a good job here. Of course, we don't start them out as flight leaders. They start either in the number 2 or 4 position, and they set their own rate of progress.
Well, how'd it feel?
It's quite a flight.
Yeah, well, after not flying for a couple months, you ought to feel good. Ed, we talk about it a little bit?
Sure.
Did you understand what we were trying to do when he was doing the recce? How he was going back and forth on the road and
I was
staying inside?
That wasn't really what I was doing.
He was too close.
You said, oh, you mean when I was, when you were wrecking the road?
Yeah,
I was flying. I was trying to fly a wing.
Yeah.
Sort of like this one.
Yeah, well, he
was leading. No, if you press on, I'll stay away from you.
There's no problem. But you see the position that you want. You don't want to get down like this because you're getting the flag. You stay up like this, and then when he disappears, just slide it, go high on him. Then when he reverses, take a look out. See, every time you look out, you look right down there and see your wingman. That's what you want to do.
When you go to the outside, you don't want to get too high because if he turns into you, that's what happened to me that one time. He turned into me and I was high and I got no place to go.
Don't get too high and don't get too low. When you get too low, if they shoot at him and you're lower, they'll probably hit you. But at the same time, if you get too high, if he turns into you, just like Ed says, you get it blocked out.
I've told you how complicated the weapon system is, so that it only can be effectively operated and utilized against the enemy by 2 professionals. And our pilots are professional pilots. We do have a few youngsters out of the training school, but most of our pilots have been in the Air Force 10 to 12 years or longer. And in fact, we have some grandfathers here that are fighting this war.
The rendezvous at 13:15.
We drop out here. 13:10, right.
Well, we'll have enough fuel after leaving that tanker to make 3 or 4 runs away. Let's look at that flag.
My best day was the 5th of July when I attacked
and destroyed 4 SAM sites in one 25-minute mission. And this came about because in escorting the strike flights, 2 SAM sites came up on our way in. We had to attack these boys to turn them off the air to get into the target area. While in the target area, another SAM site came up, threatening the strike force, and of course we attacked and got him. And then on the way back out, another SAM site came up to block our exit out of the target area, which was about 15 or 20 miles north of Hanoi. And we only had one part of rockets and 20-millimeter cannon ammunition remaining, but he fired 2 SAMs at us, and we managed to acquire him visually and put the rockets on him and machine gun him out of commission. This was the best day I've had, and I don't care to go through another one of those. A little too much for an old man.
There ain't no way.
I've come up with one thing that, in my own mind, makes the Air Force a good organization, and was one of the reasons I stayed in it after I got into fighters, and that's the people that are in it. And I think this has been most vividly demonstrated to me over here. I don't think you can get more diversified type of an organization, people with diversified backgrounds. We have some old heads from Korea, some young heads from the academy, and we got the world's greatest B-52 fighter pilot over there, Bob Loken, and a few other people from SAC, ADC, and 12th Air Force Headquarters, and things like that. And we made a pretty good organization. I think we kind of put a squadron, if we could tell it to the world, we put it on the map. And I'm very happy to have served with each and every one of you troops.
So if I can swing a deal to get down south with working 100s or F5s or A1s or, geez, I don't care, as long as it's close air support. If I can swing that, I'm going to just try to go, or maybe back to States TDY to upgrade down there. If not, I'll stick around and fly an 01 or an A1. It'd check you out right up north, you know.
You ever have thoughts that you might not make that?
Oh, no. Yeah, but I've been drawing pay for 16 years. This is my job. As of right now, I've got 3 children. I've got a 6-year-old boy and a 11-year-old girl and a 17-year-old girl. So, just watching kids grow up and so forth. I don't care if they're North Vietnamese kids or South or what have you. I have no desire to go bomb villages and kill women and children at all. I've been very careful not to do that sort of thing. I'm very careful. I think most of the pilots in the squadron are very careful where they put their bombs so that they don't accidentally hit women and children, this sort of thing. How do you feel, John? I think Bill's right. I don't know of anyone that's just going to go over and drop a bomb in a village because that's not doing anything for the war effort. We want to get the targets of military importance.
Well, it was on the 13th of September, we were flying a bombing mission North Vietnam. We just discovered a bunch of missiles on transporters. Just finished dropping ordnance on them. We're looking for something to strafe and found a flag site. And we was getting started to make a pass. And I took a direct hit from either 37 or 57. Called I was hit, leaving the area. They didn't hear my radio transmission because number 4 man thought I was a missile. Called me out as a SAM. And the number 3 man said, no, that's 2, he's on fire. And I got about a minute and 10 or 20 seconds flying time out of the aircraft, got about 40 miles away from where I was hit. And I had a minor explosion, lost hydraulic pressure. The aircraft pitched down. And I ejected in an almost uncontrolled situation. About 525, 550 knots, 2 negative Gs. That's when I hurt my ankle. Caught my foot. Ejection process getting out. Everything else was uneventful after the chute opened. Down, landed in the trees. Got my radio out, talked back to the flight. And they said the rescue aircraft was on the way. And it took him about 45 or 50 minutes to get to me, and about 5 or 6 minutes to pick me up.
Well, that's the God. You know, you get up in the 90s and you got 10 to go, and you say, well, I'm going home pretty soon, so I got to tell these guys something. So you go lay in bed at night and you think of things to tell them. And the runs,
What do you think about it?
And wait a minute.
Wait a minute, I ain't finished.
I'm going to tell you guys something right now. This is my speech, and I don't need any help. Incidentally, I have a 3-hour speech prepared.
Forget it.
Something I'm damn proud to have, besides working with all you guys and with your names here. I don't really need this picture frame with you. With the name. I'm going to remember you guys. But, no, I remember you, because those are the guys you remember, the guys you fought with.
This has been the story of fighter-bomber pilots at Korat Air Base, Thailand. For the flyer, living the hell over Hanoi, facing up to the odds, there is the simple yet poignant phrase, there ain't no way, there ain't no way, there ain't no way. But there comes the day for most, when the job is done.
I won't even say to the rest of the guys, no, there's no way, because there is a way. Major D has scheduled in there. There's a way.
Oh, boy, there is a way. There is a way. There is a smile this morning. We're going hard. Be down there, huh?
Together we'll tickle the beat. Then we'll head for the Red River Valley. And